Okay, cool. Yeah, so we've got physical health, emotional health, mental health, and spiritual health. Now, in this sort of next 45 minutes or so, we're going to spend most of our time on physical and yeah, physical health basically. But all four make a big part. They're all. It's like if you think about a vehicle, like an aeroplane or a car. You know, without the engine, you ain't going anywhere. Without the wings on the plane, if you only got one wing, you're going to crash. Okay, without the propellers, you're going to like. You need all of it to be functioning well to get from A to B. Whereas a lot of trainers, a lot of people that are sort of touting advice will tend to focus just on the one area. They'll just tend to focus maybe just on the engine or just on the wings, to use that analogy. Okay, I like to get people to really focusing on it from an even bigger perspective of full health. So physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual health. I think it's a really good first strategy. So the question is, well, if that's the case, what am I looking for? And this will change the whole paradigm of your mindset as well. Because most people, when they say, do you know what, Matt, I want to get fitter and I want to get healthier, I'll say, okay, well, how are you measuring that right now? And they'll say, well, you know, go on the scales sometimes, but I don't like it because it makes me feel like crap if I'm not where I want to be. And so that becomes like, or maybe they've been to the doctors and the doctors have told them that they've got high blood pressure, or maybe there's heart disease that runs in the family, and they've gained a lot of weight and they're maybe hitting 40, 50, and they're starting to worry about heart attack or something like that. But generally, most people's metric is literally just, what am I weighing on the scale? And that's just one metric of full health. So if we are to take that first principle of good health, you know, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual health, then we need to be looking at a broader spectrum of health metrics. Okay. So, you know, blood pressure, resting heart rate. I mean, that's why wearables are a really useful thing. Like I've started really focusing on my sleep score using my Fitbit. I think the sleep score thing's great. You know, it gives you a score. It gives you a metric to your sleep. And sleep is one of the fundamentals of health. You know, if anything, you want to be measuring that more than the scale weight. You know, obviously, it's dependent on the person. But scale weight is obviously still a metric and it's useful, as is body fat percentage. Hip to waist ratio is a good one, as is all measurements. Your resting glucose levels. And then if you can get blood tests, then things like inflammatory markers, hormone markers. This is one of the reasons we've linked up with Larissa and Randox Health, because that's the way I foresee my business going, is helping people getting tested for some of these health markers so they can really see what their health is doing. So, you know, and from a mental and emotional perspective, you know, how emotionally resilient are you? And then we can go into the more physical aspects of fitness, like simple things like, can I touch my toes? Like, that sounds really simple, but it's a metric really, because we should all really be able to touch our toes. Okay. Just from a mobility standpoint, can I go for a 4 or 5K run without, you know, it killing me? It's not a bad metric. Can I do one full press up? You know, for a female, one full press up done really well is really good. It's fantastic. That's a great metric. Okay. 10 for the guys watching this, 10, 15 should be more of the goal. Okay. And this isn't going to make you an elite athlete, but these are just some sample metrics that I recommend generally for people to stay in good health. Okay, these aren't performance metrics that are going to get you to the Olympics or anything like that. But most people watching this, they just want to have more energy. They want to be in a body that they feel confident with and comfortable with when naked. Okay, and they just want to have more. They just want to feel happier in themselves. So those are the metrics you should be writing down when you're doing your goal setting, rather than just going, you know, I want to lose a stone because there's summer holidays coming up. when we get out of lockdown. And that's fine. Nothing wrong with having that. If you're passionate about that and if that drives you, then great. But I think that's a short-term goal. Okay, these longer-term goals are ones that you want to be reviewing regularly on a month-to-month basis as well. Okay, so obviously when you look at it, it's actually quite complex, and health is quite complex. There's only a handful of people I can think about. Someone like Paul Chek. Paul Chek is just a genius. And yeah, like I said, the Camphor Dax Moy, one of my other mentors. There's not many people I can think of that have the expertise to look at health as a whole, which is why you don't hear many people talking about this stuff. That they'll tend to talk just about mindset, or just about nutrition, or just about exercise, where that is kind of limited thinking, because they all work as one. So I developed the LPT Perfect 10 scorecard just to simplify the whole thing, because explaining all of that in detail is very hard. At the end of the day, most people don't really want to know all of the science behind it. They just want to know, like, bloody hell, Matt, what do I actually have to do? So the scorecard idea is really, I think it's good, because it allows you to be objective. Okay, so it allows you to make it gamified. Your experience towards your results. It allows you to gamify the experience. What can I get this week? If I set maybe my target is a perfect 8 every day. Okay, so over a course of a week, your score would be 56. And then at the end of the week, you can look at your score and you can be like, oh, actually, I only scored 40. Why was that? Which habit was I really struggling with? And then you can take a more objective approach. You can talk to myself or one of our team, or even look at it yourself and like really get deep on that particular habit. So, we'll go into, so the 3 core categories of the Perfect 10 are: number 1, functional nutrition; functional movement, number 2; and stress management. Okay, so that's really the basis of the Perfect 10. So if you want to write this down again: functional nutrition, functional movement, stress management. For me, if you get anywhere near to nailing these 3, you're on the road to health, well-being, happiness, all the things that you want. So let's go into functional nutrition first. So what do we mean by functional nutrition? So what my definition is, the bullets that I wrote below. So repairing of muscles, damage to tissue, helping growth in the body in important areas, replacing nutrient deficiencies. Many people have nutrient deficiencies and don't know about it. And unless you get tested, you can't really know. Keeping your immune system strong is obviously a super important one right at the moment. Aesthetics. So aesthetics meaning, weight loss, building muscle tissue, and enjoyment as well. We want to enjoy our food. That's absolutely key. And, certainly that's one of the keys to transformation, is if you can build a healthy, nutritious diet that you enjoy, wow, does that make it a lot easier to stick to, right? So that's what functional nutrition does, is it has a function. If you ask most people what's the function of food, they'll be like, oh, well, stops me from feeling hungry. So, it's important to understand that there's more to the reasons behind it. In terms of the Perfect 10, we're just focusing on really hydration. Okay, roughly 70% of your body is water, so staying fully hydrated is absolutely paramount importance. And then obviously food quality, food quantity. So what I want to do with these slides is not just tell you what is important and why it's important, but just to give you guys some strategies around, getting shit done, actually implementing. So hydration wise, obviously we're trying to aim for the minimum of 2 liters of water a day. Put your hand up, guys, if you're hitting that. Who's doing 2 liters? Yeah, well done. Good stuff. That's a real minimum. I mean, typically for most people, it's going to be more like 2.5. For guys, it's going to be more like 3 to 3.5. Obviously, it depends how much you're training. If it's sunny like this as well, you're going to be sweating more, so you need to hydrate more often. And I can tell you from doing like hundreds of consultations with people, about 70% of people are not fully hydrated. It has a massive impact on you functionally in terms of how your brain works and how your body works. But I can tell you one big downside to it: you want to eat more. Like if you're dehydrated, your body will tell your brain that you're hungry, where in actual fact you're just very dehydrated. Okay, so keeping on top of the hydration is super important for your nutrition. Okay, so just doing simple things like always having a water bottle, that you use as your standard. You can record how many in Keystone. You can record, how many 250 ml servings you have, or you can just go old school and go pen and paper. I think it's key with any of these types of habits to have some strategies in place, some systems in place until it becomes a habit. If you're having to consciously think about it all the time, then you probably need a bit more sort of prodding. Make it tasty. Okay, so if you really like, I do meet quite a lot of people that just find water just boring, tasteless. More times than often, it's because their body is so not used to drinking water that, like, it's like anything. If you haven't tried something for ages, it tastes a bit off. But you can obviously get water. Ideally, drink filtered water if you can, or good quality bottled water. I'll be honest, our tap water is not great quality, particularly in Northamptonshire. So if you can use like a Brita filter, that's definitely gonna help. But having like a lemon ginger tea in the morning, that's one of my favorites. I have quite a lot of greens drinks, so I've got like a little powder of greens supplement. I'll put that in my protein shaker, and that will be a way of getting my fluids in. And then you've got herbal teas as well, which are quite useful. Caffeinated drinks don't really count because they kind of balance out. They're a diuretic, so you almost like pee out what you bring in. And using reminders. So, maybe if you're really rubbish at hydration, then put 2 or 3 reminders on your phone, throughout the day. Maybe like at 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Ideally, you don't want to be leaving it to the end of the day to get your last litre of water in. Otherwise, you could be up all night going toilet, right? So that's the hydration rule. Then we're going to move on to the big one. Well, one of the big ones is the SIF rule. So SIF is single ingredient food. Okay, and the idea is this is a whole food approach to eating. Someone got a question? I will come to questions in a little bit. And so as a rule, 90% single ingredient food is a good aim for results. Okay, so I see it like this. Typically, if you're eating 90% of what you take in from whole foods, okay, by default, you're probably going to eat less. And the reason for that is whole foods are more nutrient dense. They contain more vitamins, minerals, enzymes, amino acids, all of the good shit. Okay, and it's the good shit that your brain actually recognizes, or your body recognizes, your brain recognizes from the signals, the hormonal signals that get sent to the brain. And those hormonal signals are really important because those are what tell the brain that you're full. When we're eating more processed foods, a lot of processed foods have been pretty much stripped away of all their good nutrition, we don't get that signal. That signal is a little bit less strong. It's a bit more blurry. And so in order to get that same feeling of fullness, we have to eat more. So even if it says low fat or low calorie, you have to eat more to get the same satiety effect. Okay. what I find is once people are around their maintenance weight, you know, once you're within, say, a quarter to half a stone of your ideal weight, you know, that's when you can lay off that a little bit. You can get away with going more 80-20. I find the 80-20 rule works good for maintenance. Okay. And so that's almost like the light at the end of the tunnel. Like if you've still got 2 stone to lose, just know that when you get within a quarter to half a stone of your ideal weight, okay, hormonally and from a metabolic standpoint, your body is just improving all the time. Think about your body as like a fat burning machine. Well, as that weight comes down, your body becomes a more efficient fat burning machine, which means when you do go to 80-20, okay, your body can sustain that better. Okay, so I put using the CCMS guide. So that is the Calorie Counting Made Simple guide. So that's one sort of portion control strategy. We'll go into portion control next after this. I've already said that 90% SIF for results, 80% SIF for maintenance. And like I said, nutrient density equals easy to eat less without even trying to. Okay. I do hear this, I'll eat in loads, but like good food, but I just don't seem to want to eat as often. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. That means that you're doing it correctly. Okay. Okay. Is everyone still hearing me? I just want to make sure that we're making some notes and everything's okay. Yeah. Find this useful so far? Yeah. Good stuff. Cool. Okay. So next up, just quickly on the subject of food quality. So what should we be eating? I mean, I've just wrote down a few typical food types, you know, your proteins and fats. So your beef, your chicken, your turkey, your salmon, your eggs, your Greek yogurt, your protein powders, your cottage cheese. You know, these are going to be containing some of the highest nutrient dense amino acids and proteins and fats that you can give your body. And then obviously fruits and veg, you're looking at your spinach, your mushrooms, onions, tomatoes, apples, berries. One thing I will say, when you go to a SIF-based diet plan, you know, your friend is going to be herbs and spices. For me, that was the big game changer. I used to find, so even my LPT meal prep, who we work with chilled meals on, I know if any of you tried those yet, they're great. They serve the purpose, but I'll be honest, they are a little bit bland, like in terms of tastiness. So I just bung on a few like chili flakes or a few herbs and spices, and bam, it just changes the meal just like that. And that really is key to sustainable good nutrition, I think, is you want it to taste nice. You want it to have some good taste. So obviously, once you've started to get in the habit of shopping regularly, getting a bit of a system in place to eat the right quality of food, then we need to make sure that we're getting the right quantity, right? So you can start really simple with this. Like I said, if you're eating good quality foods, by default, you should starting to be eating a little less. Now, the thing to do is try and be more mindful. So I know there's a few people on here that, you know, a lot of this is quite new. And so if you've been in the habit of eating quite often, okay, and you're sort of snacking, I know a lot of people sort of graze throughout the day without realizing it, that has become an ingrained habit. And even if you switch to a healthy diet plan, that same habit can still be is still formed in the brain. So you might eat your 3 healthy meals, but you're still grazing throughout the day. So it's really important to start to be more mindful at your main meals. Eat when hungry and just slow down. The 15 to 20 minute rule is a really good one. So your main meals should last 15 to 20 minutes. Okay. And try it tonight, try it at lunch. What you'll find is for some people that on our retreat, unfortunately we had to cancel it this time, but that's one of the challenges that we do on the retreat is we put a timer on, and like some people are and having to wait like 5 minutes before they can have their last mouthful, because they've got that habit inbuilt from childhood to eat fast and eat quickly and just get it down you. It's not a healthy trait. So it will serve you really well to slow down your food. I know it sounds super obvious, but from a neuroscience point of view, from a brain science point of view, you will feel fuller just by doing that. Eating protein dense foods is super important. I think this is probably one of it's probably up there in the top 3 biggest mistakes people make, is not getting the protein dense foods at each main meal. Okay, these are the protein as a macronutrient. The body has to work way harder to break it down, firstly. So just from the process of doing that, that's called the thermogenic effect. Your body actually has to burn more calories. I think it burns roughly 20% more calories than the other macronutrients, just because of how hard the body has to work to break it down. So you actually burn calories by eating more protein. That's forgetting the benefits of protein in terms of muscle building, satiety as well. So that's really important. For most of you, you want to get a minimum of 20 grams, but ideally you're looking at more like 25, 30, maybe even 40 for the gents on here. Okay, so that's super important. And then obviously getting some vegetables with each meal, some carbohydrates with each meal as well. We're not anti-carb. It's just, again, getting the right balance, that there's no black and white to this. So with respect to carbs, we just want to limit. If your goal is weight loss, then you want to be limiting your carb dense foods to ideally mainly after training. Okay, so that sort of window of 2 or 3 hours after training, or the very least on a training day, on a what we call a glycemic load day. So a day when you're kind of really going to be doing some metabolic work, doing some press ups and some squats and that kind of exercise. Now, if you are using the hand palm thumb rule, okay, so remember the palm is equivalent to a protein serving. Okay, cup is equivalent to a starchy carbohydrate. So this is a high dense carb, and then fist is the non-starchy, and thumb is your fats. A really easy starter is if you stick to a meal plan for a week and you only lost 1 pound in weight, let's say, then the week after you could pretty much follow exactly the same meal plan, but just remove 1 or 2 cups of equivalent to carbohydrates today of your starchy carbs, and I pretty much guarantee you're going to lose 2 or 3 pounds the following week. Okay, that's almost like level 1 portion control. Level 2 is obviously we get you set up on Keystone with your calorie guide, with your calorie target, and your macronutrient target. Okay, and that is, I feel like everyone should do that anyway at some stage, because it's just knowing your numbers is really important. And I think everyone should try it for at least 7 days. Okay. Now, one of my sort of newest ideas is I feel like most people should try it for 7 days, first of all, without even making much effort. Okay. So if you are quite new to all this and you're trying to make good, healthy changes in your diet, just out of interest, as an experiment, just eat what you'd pretty much normally eat. Okay, without particularly be trying to be good, and just take a real objective approach to it. Treat it as an experiment and see how many total calories do you consume in that week. Okay, include the weekends, and then you may find that you're like, once we find out how many calories you should be on, you might find out you're 2,000 or 3,000 calories over by the end of the week, which then it will be like, no surprise. Okay, this is why the weight's not been moving. So then we just have to say, okay, well, we need to make some refinements the following week. And then that's where the work starts. So in terms of the work, obviously, the first thing to do is sit down, okay, and start creating a bit of a meal plan. Okay, yeah, you first have to look at your schedule, look at, you know, when you can eat, when you've got the time to eat. If it's, because if we're eating whole base foods, sometimes it's going to be a case of having an extra 5-10 minutes to actually prepare and make it. Okay, if you haven't got time for 3 meals a day, maybe you might do what I do and just eat 2 meals a day. You know, so you have to work it around your schedule, and then you need to just get inspired. So have a look through our cookbook, have a look through the Keystone cookbook, have a look through your own cookbooks. You know, at the end of the day, get a little bit creative. Start by looking at the single ingredient food types from protein. Start looking at the food groups from carbohydrates. And if you take more of a functional based approach, so looking at, well, this is what I need to eat, this is what Matt's saying to eat, I like that protein, I like chicken breast, and I like that vegetable, I like broccoli, or that's just an example. I'm going to put those two together. I might have some sweet potato chips with it, or some sweet potato with it. I might have a little bit of cottage cheese on as well. And then you just experiment, and you might try that next day, and then that concoction might be fucking horrible. Okay, so then you just try something different. You might try one of our recipes from the cookbook and absolutely love it. Then you create your recipe list that you love, okay, and then get rid of the ones that you're not so keen on, and just start making a list. Like if you have a really good meal, that should be stored somewhere. You should take a picture of it, have the recipe somewhere, or if it's out of our cookbook, okay, make sure that's in your master plan nutrition diary or whatever you've got, and you're like, I love that dinner, and that dinner doubles up as a nice lunch as well. So that's going to be in my bag of recipes that I enjoy. It's high protein, it's relatively low carb, it's got some good fats in, it fits the bill. So you want to start building that out. A big common mistake is eating too many of the same meals. So people will have like the same breakfast every day. And again, that's usually because it's a habit they used to have. They used to just eat cereal every day, or they used to just eat toast every day. Okay. Going all the way back to the start, that's not serving nutritional deficiencies. You know, there is a reason why the term balanced diet is very popular, because there's a lot of truth to it. We need a good balance of vitamins and minerals so that we can live a healthy life. So, you know, you do want to go through all the breakfast recipes, go through the lunch recipes, try and make sure that you're not eating the same thing every day. I recommend people try and create a 2-week meal plan rotation. So if you can create a meal plan rotation, so it might be, you know, Friday nights is your chili night on the week 1, but then on the second meal plan rotation, it's a curry, and then on a Thursday you might have a different meal as well. So, you know, you've got this. So you basically building a bit of a systemized plan, and then once you've got that, you can always tweak it. Okay. And as you can see, that it's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. But the thing is, once you start to work on it, and once you allow yourself to be a little bit patient with your results, because one thing I will say is, when you're taking a health-based approach to weight loss, you know, or health, it generally is a bit longer in seeing the results. But I could tell all of you, I could give you an intermittent fasting plan or a fasting plan, and you just don't eat. I'll say, right, guys, I've got this really cool diet next week. We're not eating. You're going to have, you know, 6 glasses of water, and you can have a herbal tea. You're probably going to lose quite a lot of weight. You're going to freaking hate me in the process. So if you're sort of judging success by just purely weight loss, then that would be success to you. That's not my idea of success. My idea of success is, where are you physically and mentally in a 12 months time? You know, because you will hate that process. And most people that have done fad diets or yo-yo diets, the reason why they generally come to a company like LPT is because they're so fed up of going around that circle. Okay. Now let's go back to, once you've created your meal plan, you've got your target goal. So let's say it's 1,200 calories or 2,000 calories I've used in this example. Okay. And obviously we're aiming to get 90% of your calories from single ingredient whole foods. Okay. So that gives you 10%. It gives you a 10% sort of buffer to have a bag of crisps or a bit of chocolate or a glass of wine. Glass of wine is about 160 calories, depending on the size. Sort of 175 ml glass is about 160 calories. So you could maybe have slightly more than that. But the reason why this is important is because you can start to say, okay, well, these are food groups or food types I'm going to really struggle to say goodbye to. Like I've got to get my chocolate fix, or I've got to get my alcohol or wine or beer or whatever it is fix. You know, I'd find it really hard to sustain this plan otherwise. Well, you don't have to. You don't have to say goodbye to all of those things. Obviously, yeah, if you want complete optimal nutrition, but we're looking for a sustained approach, because that's the one that's going to win long term, is the diet plan that you can sustain long term. So, you know, if it was 2,000 calories, if that was your target to stay on track with, then you've got 200 calories a day you can play with. Okay. Now you could either say, well, you know what, I'm not bothered. Monday to Thursday or Monday to Friday, I'm actually like pretty good at going 100% like full on SIF. But my weekends is the time where I like to kind of relax my diet a little bit. Great. You know, you can use some of those non-SIF days just to, you know, back up. And it's not an exact science, but it definitely works. That's my sort of approach, is I sort of think of my Fridays and Saturdays as my sort of flexible dieting days. And then that way you're not punishing yourself to get results. You're giving yourself something to look forward to. And you're doing something that very few people do, which is planning your treats rather than your treats being a reactive response to stress. Those are two very different things. Yeah. So just want to make sure everyone still can hear me okay, and we all taking this in. Yeah. Let's just see. Someone. Boiled water okay instead of filtered. That's from, yeah, if you do want to put any questions, you can put it in the group chat. That's actually quite a good idea. Yeah, boiled water's okay. Do you mean, let me just take you off the mic, on the mic, Indra. So do you mean boil the water and then drink it? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, instead of having if I don't have a filtered water or from the shop, so rather than use tap water, can I just boil it, cool it down, and just make it just ready to
do you know what, I'm pass. I'm not 100% on that one. I don't know if the boiling of the water is going to completely destroy all of the chemicals. I've heard some pretty crappy stuff about our water, that I'm actually looking into getting a home water filtration system, but they're quite a lot of money. You're looking at about £1,200. But the water is such an important thing. But our water, particularly in Northamptonshire, is awful. It's not great tap water, but it's still better than being dehydrated. So you yeah. But that's a good question though. I'll maybe like do some research and try and look into that. Okay. So where were we? So back on the food quality, I'm just gonna make that big again. So hopefully that kind of explains those. Actually, I will open up to questions now. Does anyone post a question, or if I, in the chat box below, if there's anything I've missed on that. Natalia, do you have a question?
I had two questions, yeah, but it's not well. My first question was when I supplement natural source of protein with powder, how often is it good to do that in a week?
Okay.
Like, how often can you have protein shake? How often can you have protein in your breakfast cereal?
Okay, that's a good question. So it's a good question. I get these sorts of questions a lot. And so this is definitely try and make some notes on this. I'm not sure how I can put it to make notes on, but the thing to ask whenever you're asking yourself or you're thinking to yourself, is this good? You first need to know what your body needs. Okay, so what is it your body requires to get the results that you want? Okay, so that's from a calorie standpoint and a macronutrient standpoint. Okay, so if having a protein shake helps you meet your protein target each day, I've literally just had a protein shake just now. I use protein shakes almost every day, not quite. It's either a protein shake or a protein bar. Is my personal thing. I just like switch it up each day. So that would definitely be in my 10% non-SIF. Okay, it's not far off. Okay, but let's face it, it's not a single ingredient food. But yeah, if it helps you hit your calorie target and your macronutrient target, have it every day. I'd maybe mix up the type of protein that you have. So, you know, having too much whey protein can be a bit much on your gut health. Okay, so I personally, I have a hemp protein, a pea protein, and a whey protein. So that's my way of getting a balance of different types of protein sources. Whey protein is got the highest profile of amino acids, more than any other protein. So that's why whey protein is so popular. It's also quite cheap to make. And it's super good after training, whey protein. So when your muscles are super like broken down and tight, whey protein is really good. As a supplement just to hit your protein target, any protein, good quality sort of hemp, pea protein. Hemp proteins are much better than they used to be. So does that help? Yeah, awesome. Anyone else got any questions on the nutrition front there?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I've only got like 10 minutes left anyway. So the other thing that I want to talk about is functional movement and how this can relate to your goal. You know, because that's the thing. Even though we're doing a masterclass on nutrition, going back to the whole idea of first principles, why do we want to learn about nutrition? We don't want to learn about nutrition just for the sake of learning about nutrition. Most of you want to learn about it because you want to get an end result. And that might be weight loss, it might be health, it might be energy, you know, it might be immune system. And so we have to look at the full spectrum. So functional movement is another part of the perfect 10. And when we're looking at functional movement, I mean moving with function. Okay, so there's a reason why we move. So that's why mobility is important, because you can't do any exercise if you've got no mobility. Okay, the more mobility you have, the more movement you can have. I've had quite a bad back problem for about 4 months now, and it's getting better. I'm doing lots of rehab training for it. And it's really reinforced this to me. You know, when you've got nothing wrong with you, you become completely like naive to anything ever happening until it happens. And then you're like, oh shit, I should have been more like, you know, and yeah, so mobility is important. Performance, having some performance goals, and aesthetics. Okay, so most people just focus on aesthetics. I want to do exercise because I want to lose weight. I want to get muscles or whatever. Okay, so we need to have a bit more of a broader look at things. So in terms of those, rehab or corrective work, yoga, proper cool downs. Okay, So, you know, if you want to improve your squat, you probably want to improve your hip mobility, your ankle mobility. Okay, you might want to do some yoga in your spare time as well. If it's a performance milestone, you know, set yourself a goal. Maybe it might be a 5K time, 5K run time. Maybe it might be to do your first full press up. Maybe it might be to do first full pull up. Okay. And then in terms of aesthetics, the key question I put here is, will this help optimize your weight loss? Because there's lots of types of fitness you can do. It doesn't mean it's going to be optimal for weight loss. For instance, running is great for fitness. It's not that good for your aesthetics unless you're running all the time, in which case you're still going to be losing a lot of muscle mass. So actually running, I mean, those of you that train with us know we don't do a lot of running, and that is purposeful. It's not a fantastic, you know, if you look at the people that have the lowest body fat percentages, people like your cover models and your bodybuilders, they don't do long distance running. They're running for like 10, 20 seconds and they're doing sprints, and that's about it. Okay, so it's really important to understand, you know, what is going to help me achieve X, Y, Z result. So that's why we do a lot of conditioning workouts. We do a lot of HIIT workouts at LPT, and we do a lot of weight training workouts, because that's more specific for aesthetics, which is what most people want who come to work with us. And then the last component of the Perfect 10 is your decompression habit. Okay, so the big three for me is, number one, if you're not already getting good quality sleep, start tracking your sleep score using your Fitbit, or just wake up in the morning and record on 1 to 10, 10 being the best, 1 being the worst. How energized do you feel? If it's below a 5, there's probably loads you can do, in which case you need to go back to watching the sleep training that we've got in the 6-week course. Okay, breath work, using breath training like Daniel Beckett's box breathing, or Tony's got a follow along breathing drill. And then, you know, going back and listening to that workshop masterclass that me and Sam did on mindset, because perception, you know, and how you perceive things can play a big part in managing stress and your ability to manage stress. So, yeah, I've gone through quite a lot there. I wanted to leave about 3 or 4 or 5 minutes for questions at the end. That's pretty much what we've learned. So hopefully in that sort of 45 minutes, we've learned why it's so important to build your strong foundations of health. Okay, why health as a rule is a good first principle. Okay, and we've learned some real simple strategies, many of which you've heard before, but you may not have still kind of really implemented into your functional health. So I think I've got a question. Let's have a quick look. Okay. So Brian, you've mentioned something called Keystone. I'm not sure what Keystone is. Okay, Brian, so that's the ARAP that I mentioned on that WhatsApp message. So I'm going to assign you the training component of Keystone, but also we can basically set your calorie target as well using Keystone. The only thing I will need from you, I think we already have it as well, is your body weight and your body fat percentage. Louise, I've tried boiling water and let it cool before. It doesn't taste very nice. Oh, there you go. So that sorts that one out. Yvonne, can you send the link on sleep, please? Yes, I will. Also, I get a lot of cramps in my lower leg and feet. What can I do? You may be a little deficient in magnesium, Yvonne. So you may want to look at supplementing your diet with magnesium, topping up your vitamin D. So you can either have a magnesium supplement, or you can choose like leafy greens to get magnesium. You take that already. Okay. In that case, are you keeping nice and hydrated as well? Yeah. Okay. Maybe a little bit of sea salt can help. You having that as well? So sea salt, when you have your morning water, sea salt is quite a good mix. There's a little concoction to help hydration. Okay, so sea salt is it's used to be thought of that salt is bad for you. A little bit of salt is actually quite good for you, and what it helps to do is it helps to keep. That's why if you see athletes, they sweat out salt. Okay, so a little bit of sea salt will just keep that hydration levels nice and high. Greek yogurt, full fat or low fat. So generally, I'd go for full fat, Erica, on the Greek yogurt. I'll be honest, it's one of those that you're talking small margins. The benefit of Greek yogurt is it's high in protein. So, you know, that ticks a big box. The reason I generally avoid the low fat and low calorie products, like I said earlier, is just because of you're not getting a higher as high nutrient density. You know, you are stripped of some of the nutrients. Okay, so I would personally go full fat. Who updates Keystone? Well, we can do that, Yvonne, obviously when we reopen, or if you've got a scale. What I recommend before we reopen, hip and waist. Your hip to waist ratio is a really good indicator of how things are moving in terms of body fat percentage. So most of you won't have a scale that does like body fat, but your hip to waist ratio is a really good one. Okay, if you type into Google hip to waist ratio guidelines, it will give you the calculation and it will tell you what's good and what's bad. Okay, and that's a real good way of kind of measuring things. Okay, so I've got to go now because I've got another call at 1 o'clock. But if you do have any more questions, feel free to ask in the Facebook group anything I haven't covered. And has everyone found that super useful? I'll just take you off mute. Has that been helpful?
Yes, very good.
Yeah,
very good.
Great. Yeah, very good, Matt. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank
Okay,
you.
great stuff, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day. It's nice and sunny.
You too.
Take care.
10,000 steps in. All right, take care, guys. Bye.
Take care. Bye. Bye.
Bye bye.
Good.